TuneIn, iTunes, Radio Loyalty, Stitcher, and our brand new Jiggy Jaguar app available in the App Store, jiggyjaguar.us. And we are going to be talking to Joel Block here in just a few moments. And he is going to be on with IQ Rizzoli and Dan Perkins and Don Mazzella. I always do Mazzella last. Why do I always have Mazzella last on the list? I don't know. But we are going to go back to the Skype audio here, and we've got Dan Perkins, Don Mazzella, IQ Rizzoli, and of course Joel Block with us today. And Joel, first of all, tell us a little bit on your background so people can get a feel for the guest today and who we're talking with.
Well, first I started in the CPA business and moved into venture capital and hedge funds. So I've been running a hedge fund for the last many years. We buy real estate all over the country, and I had built a publishing company which I sold to a Fortune 500 some years ago. So I've been doing deals. I'm in the deal business.
Fantastic. And first of all, Dan, I know that you've probably got some questions for Joel, so I'm going to let you jump in there. Joel's website, bullseyecap.com. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I would say if you're a venture capitalist, what do you think of what's going on in the stock market?
Well, the stock market's not really my area. Although it was down by 1,100 yesterday. It's back 600 today. We're not on the air, right? I mean, we're just talking between us.
No, we're on the air.
No, we're on the air now. We're on the air officially now.
Cool. Yeah, even better. So listen, it jumps up and down, and it's you have to think that for the last 6, 8, 10, 12 months, we're up 25, 30%. There hasn't been a big correction. I don't go around giving people a lot of stock advice. I sort of keep some of this to myself, but it's not unusual that there wouldn't be some event that would cause the thing to come down a little bit. So it goes up by a lot, and then it comes down a little bit, and that's what happened yesterday. Is it came down a couple days in a row. People get all upset about it. But you got to remember what's happened over the last, 12 months. It's been fantastic.
Go ahead, Don.
No, I was going to say, Bernard Berenson, they asked him, the great Wall Street guy, and they said, what about the stock market? And he said, it goes up and it goes down. and that's the end of it. I mean, that was his profound advice.
Here's the thing, is that if you look at it, on a minute-by-minute, day-by-day basis, it jiggles up and down and up and down. But, if you look at it every month or two, which most investors should really look at it every month or two, they shouldn't look at it every 5 minutes, it just trends upward over time, and which is good. It's good over time, and it's not unusual that you wouldn't have such a giant charge like we've had, and then all of a sudden there'd be some decrease where people want to take profits or they get nervous about something. I don't take this very seriously. And today it's back by half anyway. So half of the decrease from yesterday is back.
Yeah, at one time today it was down 950 points. You're right. There has not been any meaningful correction since this market took off. But I've been in the business of managing money for 44 years now, and I look at what happened was there was such a pent-up demand for something positive to happen about our country over 8 years of Obama. When Trump came in and he started talking about wanting to make America great again and bringing jobs back, and then when he got elected, and all of a sudden companies were saying they were coming back and they were hiring people and things started to move dramatically, the market took off because it really hadn't done, it had done reasonably well, but not anywhere near its potential. And so a lot of people who had been earning zero on their money for almost the entire time, and one thing I need to put in perspective for people is it's been 10 years since the market crash of 2008.
Yeah.
And so we're 10 years out of that. But I think that the pundits today were talking about yesterday and they were saying, well, it's because interest rates went up because of inflation, because the Federal Reserve is going to have to raise interest rates, and that they might raise interest rates 4 times over the next 12 months, which would probably take the yield on the 90-day Treasury to about 2.25%. That's not a measure to knock down the market. If a corporation could borrow money in the 2 to 4% range, they can't put it to work making greater than the cost of funds. They're not going to borrow the money. I think that there's an opportunity that people in business are looking at, gee, if my cost of money goes up, so it goes up. But I think that I'm on the positive side of making it. What happens, though, at times is that people forget how much money they lost in 2008 and 9, and they think they've become stock pickers, and they know everything they could possibly need to know about picking stocks. And then when we have an incident like last Thursday, Friday, and Monday, they all of a sudden have no confidence in their ability to make investments, and they panic. And so what do? They sell.
Yeah. Well, either they sell it, or maybe they take profits, or who knows what. I mean, I think that we are very healthy. I think everything what you just said is absolutely accurate, that there was a lot of pent-up demand. I think in the last 30 days, this new tax program is extraordinary. All the investment, the repatriation of capital back to the United States is fantastic. The investment, the distributions of bonuses is fantastic. And, I don't know why there are some people who are saying it's not enough, but you know what? Whatever we get is more than we had before, and it's fantastic. And these are all things to celebrate.
Yeah, I say to people now, I'm going to give you one of 2 choices. When President Barack Obama was in office, 100% of the Democrats voted for and passed Obamacare. In the first year of Donald Trump's year in office, 100% of the Republicans passed a tax reduction. Which one you're happier with?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Hopefully rhetorical, because hopefully nobody answers it the wrong way. Look,
right.
Can I jump in here?
Yes. And then I was going to go ahead and finish us up on this topic, and then we're going to get to our next one here, Don.
Well, I was going to go off the topic totally and ask him, as an entrepreneur, what he saw for the future in America.
Well, listen, I'll tell you. To me, the entrepreneurial spirit is what keeps this country going. It's not big corporations that innovate and do the great things that make things happen here. It's the little companies. Little companies innovate, big companies operate, and they do a good job. And that's why big companies buy little companies, because they do a better job of operating them. But little companies, the creativity we bring to bear, these are the things that are what makes the country great. The tax cuts kind of just grease the wheel for it to happen. And we have an environment where there is just tremendous opportunity and possibility. And I think that with the internet, with all of the new regulation that's been kind of stripped away and a lot of the things that have happened, the road is even more available to more kinds of people, all kinds of entrepreneurs, regardless of where they're born, what language they speak, where they come from, what they look like, all the things about them. The world is open to lots of people, and let's just focus on green instead of any other color. That's kind of how I look at it.
We've got Don Mazzella with us today, best-selling author Dan Perkins, also IQ Al Rizzoli, and our special guest today, Joel Block. And Don sent some suggestions for some topics earlier. I want to start with this with this first one here: the death of the Russian airman. What can you tell us about this, Don? And I also want to get IQ's thoughts on this as well, since we haven't heard from him in the first 12 minutes here. I get concerned. Go ahead, Don. Jump in there.
Well, you may or may, most of us are aware that using an American-made anti-aircraft missile, the Syrian ISIS units downed the Russian, an advanced Russian fighter, and they murdered the Russian pilot after he had parachuted to safety and landed on the ground, and they just cut him to bits. The interesting there was three interesting parts of that. One, it happened in the last enclave in Syria held by and again it's unclear whether it's ISIS or some other group. Two, it was a Russian plane being down by an American anti-missile. And three, it's the interesting quietness about this whole incident. That to me is the best part about it. A year ago, we would have been hearing a hue and cry, but instead there's been almost nothing said about it since that day. And I chalked that up to the changing world in the Mideast, and I was wondering what IQ had to say about it.
Yes, IQ, jump in there, my friend.
As usual with Islam, when a pilot leaves the aircraft, the parachute is still alive, they cut him to ribbons. They did, you remember the Jordanian pilot, they burnt him alive? Mm-hmm. This is what Islam is all about. I'm not generalizing, I'm specifying. It's not a generalization. In Islam, this is exactly what they do. You don't take prisoners. Muhammad said on three items in the Quran and the Hadith that I agree with Muhammad, only on three. One, war is deception. Two, never take prisoners. Three, silence means consent. On these three, I agree with Muhammad. On everything else, we are diametrically opposite. What happened? I have no idea how they shot him down. Most probably he didn't have what the Americans and the Israelis have, flares. Had he had flares, it could have deceived the missile. I didn't see any flares on the video that they showed. I don't know about you. Did you see any flares?
No, I did not.
Exactly, that's why they shot him down. All aircraft today, all fighters, all fighter bombers, have these elements which they shoot out of the aircraft to mislead the missile. In this case, there wasn't any. But they murdered him. According to the Russians, though, he blew himself up with a grenade. Whether it's true or not is immaterial. Back to you, sir.
Joel, what do you make of this, Joel?
Hey, listen. This is kind of outside my my area. I'm just enjoying kind of listening to you guys on this.
Okay, Dan, jump in there, my friend.
Well, I think that the reason why, as Don pointed out, the things have been somewhat silent, is that what the terrorists understand now, as do the governments in that area, understand that the rules of engagement for coalition forces has changed. And so I'm not saying that they're blasé. I'm saying it isn't important to them that this Russian plane was shot down, because the rules of engagement allowed them to do whatever they wanted to do and expect the enemy to do whatever they want to do. And so what we had for the longest time under the Obama administration is rules of engagement that hamstrung not only American forces, but any of the coalition forces from attacking when being attacked. And so the fact that the rebels, whoever they were, shot down the Russian plane with an American grenade launcher or whatever it was, it just says that we supplied weapons to somebody, and this group, whoever they are, got them either because we gave them to them or they stole them. Doesn't make any difference. They used them and they knocked down an aircraft who probably was trying to do something that he shouldn't have done, so he paid the price. And when he got shot down, I think it's fair, and IQ could tell me whether I'm right or not. I don't think that these terrorist organizations are signers to the Geneva Convention.
No, definitely not. No.
Well, let's find a topic for our guest. that he what he Joel, what would you like to talk about?
Well, you know what I thought we were going to talk about this gig economy. You guys were talking about making jokes about guys with hearts on their face.
Well, see, this is something, Joel, that there's a lot of folks that I know personally that have participated in the gig economy, and there's there was all this stuff there for a while where they were having these apps where you could go to Burger King and you took a picture of something and you posted it, and then there was Fiverr and Gig Bucks and all these that came along. What do you make of the quote unquote gig economy?
Well, listen, a couple things. One is that 50 years ago, or maybe less than 50 years ago, our parents, our dads in particular, would get a job. They'd work at a company for 30 years. They'd get a gold watch, slap on the ass, and they'd be sent home. And that's it. That's what they did, right? Isn't that how it worked? And they would, if you showed up and you were good and you did your work, you would be invited to come back on Monday and get another paycheck. And companies stopped wanting to do that, and they stopped wanting to do that because it was more expensive to pay somebody every single day than to pay them a premium to do just the work that they want. So now, it's kind of become normal that people get paid a premium for doing just the work that somebody needs. But it makes it very difficult for people to put a life, kind of a living together when you're just getting little pieces of work, whether it's a gig here and there. And that's a big problem for people.
Can I jump in here? In today's Post, the cover story is about a limousine driver who committed suicide blaming Uber because he couldn't make a living anymore.
Well,
that's unfortunate.
He blamed the gig economy.
Well, I would say to take a different side of this particular issue. While I agree with our guest in principle that the reliability of employment in the corporate world changed dramatically over this generation, because you used to work 20 years and you got a defined benefit pension and you knew exactly how much money you were going to have in retirement. And corporations realized that they couldn't meet the funding requirements of the pension plans, so they went to 401ks and put more of all the responsibility of managing the money on the part of the employee, and would or wouldn't necessarily help in the funding of the 401k. The gig economy, I think, was highlighted by the fact that the growth rate in gross domestic product in the Obama years as president was under 2%. And so what happened is that many corporations were unsure of, one, what government policy and regulations were going to be, and number two, they were unsure of what the direction of the economy was going to be, and did they need to hire people, build new plant and equipment. And basically what they decided, we don't think we're going anywhere for a long time, as long as we've got Obama as president, so we have to control our costs, and we're going to have to lay off people, and then we'll hire special talent, the quote gig economy. Now we're in a different situation. Now we're at 4.1 unemployment rate, and we have a growing economy at over 3, headed toward probably 4.5 by the end of the fourth quarter of this year, maybe more. Mark that down, Jim, as a prediction. And what's happening is that the skilled labor that corporations need to grow and expand their business is in short supply. And so those people who used to work in gig in order to try and survive are seeing opportunities going back to the traditional corporate market in order to fill a need that the corporation has, albeit understanding in some cases they're taking an employment risk that they wouldn't have as they were in a gig economy.
I think there's a lot of factors. I think all those are very good points. But corporations, there's a lot of burden on corporations. There's, a lot of payroll taxes, a lot of benefit packages, the Obamacare, all these health cares and all these different things. it adds a tremendous amount to the base pay of an employee. And if they can offload that in any way, then they want to do that. And so even though the economy's better and things are looking better, I think they just like dealing with people in this way where they don't have a lot of contractual responsibility.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but I think they're going to find as as the economy continues to expand and the need for skilled talent, there's going to be more and more money put on the table, and it's going to be hard to say, I'd rather be an independent contractor, but that six-figure number, that looks pretty interesting. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to work on a particular day and looking for somebody to help pay the bills. There's a lot of comfort in that may attract some number of people who have been in the gig economy trying to survive, who have talents and abilities. But there will be some that will continue. But I think the pressure from corporations and the demand for employees may make a dent in the gig economy.
Well, listen, that would be good for people, if that happens.
Sure.
So for some
Well, I'd like to jump in here and say there's a difference between a corporate executive and an entrepreneur. In my experience, corporate executives are by nature conservatives, and they tend to hire in their image. Usually male, but for the male, even the females tend to hire in their image. But in many cases, they don't seem to be advancing the corporation so much as managing it. Would you like to comment on that, Joel?
Listen, I think that I think there are so many millions and millions of people working in these companies. It's very difficult to generalize in this way and say that all these guys are conservative. God, there's all kind of people, but I think what's crystal clear is that they want to try to push off of their balance sheet, off of their income statements, responsibilities that they don't have to have. Now, if they get put in a situation where they need talent, they are going to secure that talent, but they're going to fill in all the gaps they can with all this temporary labor, which is what we keep calling gig. All these gig people, they're basically filling in the gaps. And why would you take on a full-time person at a high rate of pay if they're available at a much more affordable rate when you take a look at how much you pay them in the aggregate? So I think that there's I think that a lot of overhead got slapped on these companies starting in the 50s and 60s, and finally corporations have been able to peel some of this responsibility off, whether it's Obama's fault or otherwise. They were able to start pulling some of it off. And once that started happening, they don't want to go back, and I don't think that circumstances are going to force them to go back anytime soon.
Couldn't agree more. But isn't a corporation, the original role of corporations to manage an operation? And as you said earlier in your opening statement, in America it seems that the smaller companies innovate and the bigger companies buy talent. But I guess my question back to you is I hire someone to be a vice president of marketing for 6 months. He or she does the job and then leaves, taking with it all of the accumulated knowledge. And what's to prevent that person from going to your competitor and doing the same thing with the knowledge of what you're doing? That to me is a drawback of the gig economy.
But I would say, Don, I would say that I'm not sure. There may be some cases, turnaround experts and people like that, but I'm not sure that the corporations who are hiring gig employees are hiring senior staff as gig employees.
Correct.
I would think that for the very reason that you talked about would be a high risk maneuver on the part of the company to want to hire the vice president in charge of sales who's a gig employee, realizing hopefully they're smart enough to figure out, as you point out, that person could leave, quote, at the end of his term and take client information with him. So I'm not sure that the gig is hiring up and senior people.
Right, I would agree with that. You know,
Well,
the
and I
majority
point
of
out
these
to you, that the NSA is still suffering from a gig employee who took all their secrets. I use the term vice president. We could use director. We could use manager. The interesting thing that I found in the last year is the number of companies that have sprung up across the United States who offer a senior level of managers to companies for gig assignments. But even at the lowest level, you're opening up your company to someone stealing your secrets in a gig a gig assignment.
That's certainly
You
possible.
know, don't you think though that somebody who's going to steal the stuff in 6 months is going to steal it in 2 years? I mean, so take a step back. I mean, really, it's about locking down information and releasing confidential information only to the people who need to know it and having better control of that information. And maybe that's the problem that we need to think about. Maybe it's not the gig economy. Maybe it's the lack of our ability to control and let people into the inside of the circle who need to know what they need to know.
We have interviewed numerous people on the securities and data security business on our recalculating show, and one of the things that consistently comes up, which talks about what you just said, is that the biggest issue of threat of theft comes from existing employees, not from outside hackers. It's the risk that you have, and we've talked with them about what security protocols you should need to put in place. But it's, as you said, maybe the risk is the guy that's been there 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, who may have been collecting data all that time, and he or she is gone and takes it with him. But I'm not saying that there aren't people who are trying to get information that are 3-month or 4-month or 6-month employees. But everybody we've interviewed so far has indicated that the real risk is with the existing employees over time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that you said earlier about the senior executives. They're not bringing senior executives on a gig basis. They're bringing specific talent, programmers, designers, voiceovers, actors, and people who do very specific things. But the management team, those can't successfully be people who are, who are bouncing in and out. It takes a long time to learn a company and learn the people and understand what's going on. You can't have people floating in and out every couple of months.
Next topic.
Yes.
Jiggy?
IQ. Do you have a suggestion, my friend, for us to cover here?
Yes. What does he think of what he's doing with the economy?
What does Joel think?
Yes.
Well, listen, the stock market's up, over 20%. The tax program is excellent. Management of companies are optimistic. Large portions of our society, people are optimistic. Those things all bode very well, and I am very bullish on things as a result of that. I think that in the big picture, forget about a lot of the minutia, a lot of the distractions that other parties that people are trying to bring to the table to kind of keep our eye off the ball. We have to stay focused on what's working, and I'm pretty clear that the economy is working pretty well.
I agree with you, but it's remarkable that you have 49% of the American people who still believe that Donald Trump is failing. 49% of American people.
It's hard for me to understand it too. I mean, these are not these are people who I'm friends with. These are not wackos. These are not people who believe in Martians. I mean, we watched the State of the Union last week, and as much as I think there's a lot of great things happening, the Democrats sat there being mad, like they didn't realize cameras were looking at them. I mean, there are some things that are working. They're working, whether you like it or not. And the fact that it's not their idea is not what matters, because the American people want success. And I don't just want success for me. I want you guys to have some success too. We can all be successful when the tide, all the boats go up, and that's what matters here. And somehow, if we don't get past this problem, and our politicians, think about what these politicians are teaching little school children. I mean, we teach 5-year-olds to act better than some of these leaders of our country.
Democrats have forgotten that the art of politics is compromise.
Yeah.
NPR put out a story today on National Public Radio, which is not exactly a right wing. And what they did is compared the three bills: the Democratic bill, the bill by the bipartisan senatorial group, and Trump's offering on a sheet on the various things. And you can't see much difference. This is NPR talking, and they even drew it as a conclusion. They could not see, there's not any material difference between the three deals. Yet the Democrats, and there's almost no difference except in timeline between the Democratic deal and what Trump has proposed. Yet if you listen to the Democrats, you would think that Trump was killing the democracy in America. It was just a fascinating document coming from NPR. I'd love to your thoughts on that and how things are going.
Well, listen, I think that I find it very difficult to even answer when somebody says he's killing the republic, he's killing the democracy, he's killing the economy. I mean, they blame him for tsunamis. They blame him for everything, no matter what's happening. It's false. I mean, the truth is the president has a limited amount of power in the United States of America. There are certain things he can do. There's a lot of things he can't do. The Congress has a lot of power, and the Congress isn't doing a lot of its job. So I think that everybody needs to be a little less focused on themselves and a little bit more focused on the big picture, and all of us will be better off.
I wrote a commentary for one of my blogs a week or so ago, and I said that when we had the shutdown, that was strike three for the Democratic Party. They struck out, and they have no agenda, they have no leadership, and they're not going to win the midterm elections. And I said they lost the presidential election. That was strike one. Strike two, 100% of the Democrats voted against the tax bill, and they had no vision or foresight to think that corporate America, they were absolutely blown away that 2 days after the tax bill passes, AT&T, who's got 200,000 employees, offered a $1,000 bonus to every employee. And now hundreds of corporations have picked that up and done all kinds of various things. So they missed the boat big time on the tax bill. And then the third thing that was the third strike, and that was when Chuck Schumer basically told the country that he was closing down the government because the most important thing to the Democratic Party were the Dreamers. And the Republicans said, not at the expense of paying our military, providing insurance for sick children, and the Democrats had nowhere to go. So they backed away, and if we got into another, and Trump was basically saying today, bring it on, if you want to close it down again. If they want to bring it down again and they don't want to compromise and do something, I think the Democratic Party is going to be a minority party, period.
I'll tell you one thing, the joke is sure weak.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said their judgment is sure poor.
Yes.
And I mean, the fact that they would put, a small group of people ahead of the United States military by itself is very problematic. I think what Donald Trump said in the State of the Union about bringing these children in, and listen, these are people. It's not their fault. They got brought here, no fault of their own, and even worse than that, the United States government has sat by and looked the other way and allowed this to happen, and then wake up one day and I think we have to go easy on some of these issues. This is me. I'm a little conservative, but I really do agree that we need to go easy on a couple of these issues. But that doesn't come ahead of paying the United States military and the other important things that you just mentioned.
IQ, did you want to say something?
Yes. Do you honestly believe, all three of you, that in the midterm elections in 2018, enough Americans would wake up, even among Democrats, that they had enough and they would vote more for Trump. What do you think?
I think so. I think that the Democrats, a lot of the rank and file Democrats, look at the way the leadership is going, the lack of leadership. Schumer is under tremendous pressure from the radical left of what he did with the government shutdown. As when I said, there is no leader, and if there's no leader, you got no policy, and if you've got no policy, you got no way to lead the people. So the idea, they are setting themselves up for, as Yogi Berra, the famous catcher for the New York Yankees, said, deja vu all over again. The outcome of the 2018 elections is going to look a lot like the outcome of the 2016 election. And that mainstream media, who's been spewing out all the rhetoric from the Democratic Party, are going to sit there at their election desk and ask, how could it happen again?
May I add one sentence? I'm calling the Democratic Party the following: the National Socialist Democratic Workers' Party.
Yeah.
That'll work.
By the way, they're behaving exactly the same way. Their supporters are trying to silence anybody who speaks conservative, whether it's universities, whether it's in debates, whether it's on the news media, exactly what the Nazi Party used to do. Back to you.
I have a question on this subject for our guest. In your crystal ball, is it possible to change the direction of that divide that you talked about?
Well, put it like this. All I can say is that in 10 years from now, it won't be like this. I mean, something is going to happen that's going to knock us off the perch and take us in a different direction. I don't know what it's going to be. My crystal ball, the batteries wore out, and I haven't had a chance to go to the store and get a new set of them. So, that's kind of a problem. But I have to imagine that something is going to happen. And maybe what's going to happen is what we're sitting here talking about right now, is that people are going to wake up and say, hey, listen, maybe we are better off. Maybe the Republicans are doing something that's working. And maybe I shouldn't be so stubborn and say no to everything just because. But I'm not talking about the politicians who lose their jobs. I'm talking about the citizens. Maybe what they're going to see is that some of the decisions that have been made are working. And you know what? I think that they are, because listen, I sit around and I think to myself, is Donald Trump either the smartest guy that was ever born, or is he the biggest idiot that was ever born? And I struggle with this, and I think to myself, which one could it be? Because he says such dumb things sometimes. But I think in the aggregate, when you look at it, I think the guy's playing chess and he's 10 moves ahead of everybody. I mean, I really think that he knows what he's doing.
I agree.
And look, I mean, things are unfolding. I mean, they really are unfolding in a remarkable way. And we're all sitting there looking at move number one, thinking that he's an idiot. But the truth is that he's got it planned out 10 moves ahead, and it's working.
Look how many times the mainstream media and the Democrats called him a buffoon, and he didn't know what he was talking about. And time again, he was proven right.
That's what I'm saying, is that, maybe the idiots are not him. Maybe the idiots are the people that don't understand what he's doing.
Good point. Good point.
This weekend, the New York Times on its internet page put up a story, a headline. I wish I had captured it exactly. I thought it would be up there, but it was taken down within 4 hours. But it in effect said that he was a threat to the democracy of America. It was the lead story, but it only lasted 4 hours, and I haven't seen it since. And it just seems my friends in the press seem to have gone overboard. In the more he succeeds, the more shrill becomes their attack. And
why do you think Don? Why do you think they took it down?
It was so egregious that even the Times couldn't take it. I'm sorry, I can't quote it exactly, but no, it was an article that I even brought my wife in to read, because it was just so egregious. it wasn't a news article. It was a shrill attack on Trump, and it lasted less than 4 hours. Because 4 hours later, when I went to copy it and send it to everybody, it was gone. And I don't have the ability to go back as other people can. But it was just an amazing document. And the one that's up there now is how his speech demonstrates. This is right now up on the New York Times page, how President Trump's speech indicates he has a feeble mind. That's
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I'm just sitting here, just amazed by what's being said, and been a newsman for 50 years, and I just can't believe there were people from the New York Times are saying this. I'm going there now. What Trump's speech says about his mental fitness. Our Trump speech patterns evidence of cognitive decline.
Yeah.
That's leading the New York Times right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's, I don't know. The guy. I can't imagine if somebody attacked me, if millions of people attacked me every single day, how I could survive. But that guy, he has a different kind of constitution than the rest of us. He's like a bulletproof vest. The guy. I mean, he's like Kevlar. He's a walking Kevlar. This guy, and nothing seems to bother him.
There is a reason for it, by the way, from the Bible. Those who curse Donald Trump are cursed. Those who bless him are blessed. Take it from me. Write it down. Remember this.
Joe, many years ago, I covered a very corrupt town in New Jersey. And every day I'd be in the paper attacking the mayor. I mean, I was digging up stuff you wouldn't believe. His name was Mayor Nicholas H. Franco. And every time I saw him, he just looked at me, talked to me. He said, just spell my name right.
Fantastic.
I mean, that's the only way you can explain it. I mean, I've talked to people. I go to the National Press Club in New York and listen into the conversations. And naturally, I keep my mouth shut. But anyway, it's just something. Jiggy, I just asked one thing. I want to talk about the 4 chaplains before we leave the air.
Well, actually, we could talk about that right now if you want to.
Okay. Only because it's indicative of the world has changed. This week is the 75th anniversary. I don't know if you fellas are familiar, but when the troop ship Dorchester was torpedoed and sinking, 4 chaplains, a Catholic priest, a rabbi, and 2 Protestant priests gave up their life vests so that other other troops could survive, and went down together, locked arm in arm. When I was growing up, it was a story. Ironically, on the 25th anniversary, I wrote, there are stained glass windows. There is a monument in Washington. There are monuments all over the place. It was taught, the story was taught in almost 6,000 schools and churches on the 25th anniversary. Now, on the 75th anniversary this week, we hardly ever hear about it. And the only reason I know about it is because the priest was assigned to a parish in Kearney, New Jersey. But I just want to say how times have changed. We honored people like that who gave self-sacrifice. And what do we have today? When the policeman was singled out by Donald Trump in his State of the Union address for taking in a homeless baby, people got on him because they said he was a fascist, and the government should take care of it. It's just such to me a way of just talking about how the times have changed, and I couldn't let us go past that without mentioning it.
I'll tell you, in my sense, is that it's sort of, it's because they complain at every single thing, they criticize every single thing in a certain way. Every time they criticize, it means less and less and less. It's less impactful because, they're just saying stuff all the time that's mean and vicious and nasty and just unwelcome. And that's, we're getting tired of it. I think the American people are getting tired of it.
I hope you're right.
I'd like to take the last couple minutes and raise an issue to our guest.
Yes.
What did you think of the memo released by the House Intelligence Committee?
I was talking to one of my attorneys a couple weeks ago about this, and he told me it was going to be the biggest thing ever since Watergate. It was going to blow the lid off everything, and it was going to be terrible. And as you watch the news, I mean, it's almost, these people have gotten so good at propaganda that they, this most incredible, incriminating, terrible political news, they've turned it around in a way that it's just absolutely shocking. I mean, it's, and the news media is kind of with them in this, that they don't want it to be so they kind of make it be so. So I don't know. To me, it seemed like when you start politicizing the FBI, the Justice Department, and some of the other important institutions in our country, that's a bad thing. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, it's like out of context, and you didn't really get all the information. It's only one little memo, and it's like not a big deal, and it's the same thing. It's the same pattern. It's like if it was the other way around, it would be the worst thing in the world. So.
Jim, I want to follow that with something that I'm about to say that probably will be thought-provoking, if not scary.
Okay, jump in there, my friend.
If you go back a little bit in history and you look at the emails between Strzok and his mistress, his muse, his lover, whatever, they talked about the need to take out Donald Trump, to try and stop him from being elected, and to get Hillary to win. And one of the things that was talked about that nobody's really jumped on is the word insurance policy. And I began to think about, after the memo came out on Friday, that word insurance policy continues to hang around in my brain. And I wonder, as crazy and outlandish what I'm about to say could be construed, I wonder if it was in the mind of some of these people who are now being exposed. I wonder, was the ultimate insurance policy, if they couldn't get him out through impeachment or resignation, they'd get him out by assassination.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. From my point of view, I've said it. I was worried about Donald Trump for all the time, and I mentioned it many times in my talks in America, that they would assassinate him. I wouldn't put it beyond them, honestly. It is not impossible. That is the ultimate insurance policy. Back to you.
Jim?
I always hope that they actually dislike Mike Pence so much that they actually would prefer to keep Trump in place.
Okay. I mean, we have to, by looking at the memo and looking at all the other stuff that's come out, and more that will probably come out from the Democratic side, which we've been told will be highly redacted. I would point to you, look at the commentary from the Justice Department, look at the commentary from the FBI while this thing was going through the process to be released, and they talked about, including the Democratic operatives, that this would endanger national security. People would die because of it. And when it came out, none of that was there. So I really have to, I'm concerned looking at it from the standpoint of, if you look at the dedication that these people had to the removal of Donald Trump, how can we eliminate the possibility that they would not try to assassinate him if they had no other choice. If that was the ultimate insurance policy, if everything else failed, and then the question becomes, what's going on in our government that the people that are there, because of their own political bias, might be willing to assassinate a president for their own benefit?
Jeez. Boy, I'll tell you, I sure hope things haven't gotten that bad. I mean, things are bad, but I hope it's not that bad. That's another level.
But what if? What if?
What if? I mean, yeah. I mean, it's possible.
It's possible, and I have grave concerns that as we get more and more, what we're seeing already so far is that the deep state that was responsible for this would lie, cheat, and steal for their objective. They would not follow the Constitution. They wouldn't follow the laws of the land. They wouldn't follow what their protocols are where they were working. They were above the law. They were the elites to decide where the country leadership should be and where should it go. And when the people rebelled by voting for Donald Trump and not voting for Hillary, we've been focusing a lot over the last year about the Democratic reaction and the meltdown of the Democrats over the fact that they still can't accept that Donald Trump was legally elected president of the United States. My concern is that the deep state realized that he wasn't elected, and they were going to do something about it, but it wasn't going to be through a political process. And I have grave fears as more and more of this comes out, which I believe it will, we're going to find that maybe I'm closer to the truth than most people think I am.
Dan, I'm going to jump in here and say, well, it's a nice thought. I disagree totally. Okay,
It's a nice thought.
It's a thought.
I don't think you meant that, Don.
Well, I meant it, you brought it up in that way, but I think don't obscure the fact with that misword. I really think you're reaching way far, and I have more faith in this country than you apparently demonstrate by that thought. I mean,
this isn't a matter of trust in the country. It isn't the rank and file, the voters who voted for Mr. Trump, or even the voters who voted for Hillary. It's control of the government by forces who have their own agenda, and they don't really care about what the American people think.
Well, I think everybody has, quote, an agenda, unquote, but to go that far goes against over 200 years of American history. And it may be that you're true, which tells us that our educational system has failed. But the FBI that I know, the rank and file that I know, are by and large people that believe in this country, believe in the efficiency of their operation. I've attended a lot of FBI parties, etc., and I just do not like to even bring those things forward, because saying it puts it into people's minds when I don't really think it's possible. I've been wrong before in life, but I really feel that's going too far.
Dan, I would suggest they have to kill both of them, because Pence, when he takes over, if he takes over, he will be worse than Donald Trump.
Oh yes,
yeah,
because he knows the levers of power, and he knows to keep his mouth shut.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say to you, I've been a student of history of this country, and I've studied a lot of presidential campaigns over the history of this country. I have never seen a first-year incumbent president treated by the opposition party and the news media at the level of Mr. Trump has been abused. And I think our guest supported that earlier on in the program, that the idea that this man elected constitutionally has no right to serve because Hillary was supposed to. These are thought processes that are not in our history. They are today. And if we want to put our head in the sand and say, well, but our history says we don't do these things, I'm not talking about history. I'm talking about the reality of what's going on today. There is no precedent for what's going on today in our history.
Grover Cleveland. Go back and look at the newspapers of Grover Cleveland's time, and you'll see this and worse. The unfortunate part is we have much more media now today than we did then. But if you go through the newspapers of Grover Cleveland, which many people felt did not deserve his second term, you'll find it. I'm not saying you're wrong, Dan, or anything. It's just bringing this up at this time is, I think, counterproductive. Because we in the media also have a role of being positive about things instead of our constant bringing of things Republican and Democratic. I think we in the media have got a role of bringing this country together, not pushing it apart.
So I disagree that the role of the media is to make things always positive, because that's
not what I said. I said
like
no. What I said was our role is to bring this country together, and I include us on it. We always bring things in terms of Republicans and Democrats rather than America. We've got to find ways of getting out the message that the positive messages about America and about what's happening, about the economy, about things like that. Not the fact that Trump did it, but the American people did it. All Trump did was bring up the issues, like FDR when he assured the nation that the banks were sound. All Trump is saying is, we are going to make America great, and Americans are rallying around that, and we as the media should be doing the same.
Well, as we wrap up here, I want to start with Dan. Bring us an update on the nonprofit, the books, and everything that you're doing, my friend.
The Why Can't Grammy Remember Me book is in its sixth week of marketing campaign. We've gotten approximately 120,000 page views. We added, so far this month, or this year, we've added 5 more groups to our 85. So we've got 90 groups that we're working with the veterans. And Terrorist Gold, the 4th installment of the trilogy, is out and starts its major campaign tomorrow.
Fantastic. And Don Mazzella, bring us update on your books and the radio program and everything.
Well, our radio program with Dan, Recalculating .business, is really moving ahead. I'm on my high horse again because I went to memorial service for those 4 chaplains. And when I grew up, America viewed itself as great. What we're seeing today is an America riven by dissent, and I just feel strongly that we should somehow or other be moving closer together. That's all I'm going to say.
IQ, you're on all the different radio, television, and internet programs. Bring us up to speed on what you're up to and how we can pick up your books and everything else.
All you have to do is Google my name, Al Rassooli, ALRASSOOLI. That's all you need to do. It's all there, free of charge.
And Joel, before we let you go, bring us up to speed on everything that you're involved in and how we can get in touch with you.
Well, listen, Joel Block, I've got a book all about how to stop hustling gigs and start building a business. So for those people who are part of the gig economy, all kinds of suggestions for how to string those things together in a way that takes care of your family and makes your future better than it is now, and that's available on Amazon.
Fantastic.
So I would encourage people to go out and see it. And, and then listen, I speak regularly to corporations, associations, and other kinds of businesses. And, for those companies, they're welcome to go to my website, bullseyecap.com. So Bullseye Capital is the name of the company, bullseyecap.com.
Good stuff. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and we will talk to you guys next week, I believe. Thank you, Joel. Thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Great. Hey, very much. Take care.
Thank you, guys. There goes our panel, and thanks for joining us here on our app, JiggyJaguar.us. Thanks for downloading the app and streaming us on audio and video. And thanks for joining us here on Facebook Live. It's always entertaining to see what the hell we can pull off on Facebook Live. So thank you. And thanks for joining us here on